Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. I appreciate you being here today. In today's video, we're going to talk about one of the least talked about skills and most underutilized skills in the entire game that I think is extremely powerful, which is ally attack. Now, there are only 15 champions in the game that have some form of ally attack. Others are stronger and others are weaker, but everybody has access to an ally attack champion, even from the very beginning of the game. Even in the first couple of days, you will get access to some ally attack champions. And I think once you start thinking about what you can do with an ally attack champion, you're going to start wanting to put them into different team compositions. Whether you're early game, mid game, late game, or end game, you can get value out of an ally attack, and you can get value in a lot of different places. So I'm going to cover all of the different ally attack champions that are in the game. I'm going to show you where you can use them, whether you're at the beginning of the game or the end of the game. I'm even going to have a little bit of fun with my own ally attack champion at the end of the video, so stick around for that. Before I show you the actual champions, please take a moment to click the like button. Also consider subscribing. We are getting very close to our first 1,000 subscribers, and I would love this video to put us over the top. So if we could do that, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for helping me out. Now, let's go look at the champions. Okay, I am here at hellhades.com and I have looked up all of the ally attack champions, and as you can see, there are only 15 that are listed. Now, I've gone through all of these champions, and some of the ally attacks are very weak or conditional. I'll give you an example. Astralon here, who is a very cool champion and a very powerful champion, has an ally attack on his A1 Hellbinder. So you can see that on his A1, it says Countess Lix will team up and join the attack if they are on the same team. So this is the only ally attack in Astralon's kit. That's not really a great ally attack. So even when we say that there are 15 champions with ally attacks, some of them are very conditional, some of them are very weak. Now, right next to Astralon is Cardiel, who is the champion, my favorite champion. If you watched any of my videos, you know about that. I promise this is not a Cardiel video, by the way. But Cardiel has probably the strongest ally attack in the game, which is one of the reasons why I love this champion. But down here, you can see Heavenly Host places a 30% increased crit rate buff and a 30% increased crit damage buff on all allies for 2 turns, then teams up with all allies to attack a target enemy. So that all allies statement is really important. We'll talk about that more in a second. Decreases the cooldown of the skill by 1 turn if an enemy is killed from this attack. So that can be reduced from a 4-turn cooldown to a 3-turn cooldown. Now, obviously getting a crit rate and crit damage buff out there on all allies allows you to build for more damage on your nukers. So this is an incredibly powerful ally attack. So while each ally attack is different and some are more valuable and some are less valuable, the all ally attack is usually the best version of that. And there are only 2 of them in the game. And those 2 come from Cardiel and Lenathril. Now, Lenathril is an underrated champion, and I think he's incredibly valuable because of this ally attack. It's close to Cardiel's, not quite as good, but it's close. Places a 30% increased crit damage buff on all allies for 2 turns, then teams up with all allies to attack a single enemy. This is on a 4-turn cooldown. So it doesn't have the increased crit rate, but it does have the increased crit damage. And again, all allies. This is important because if you're going to use this champion in places like Clan Boss or Dungeons, or especially the Hydra Boss, only all allies will utilize every single ally in your composition during those fights. Other champions have a limit to the number of allies that can attack. For instance, Kreela Witcharm, who has a pretty good ally attack, is limited to, it's her A2, to 3 random allies. So that means she's going to attack and 3 random allies are going to attack. That's great in Arena, where that means everybody, right? All 4 champions are going to attack. It's pretty good in Dungeons, but 1 person's going to be left out. And then it's okay in Hydra Clan Boss because 2 champions are going to be left out. And the important thing, there are 2 important things to know about ally attack. One is that it is a random choice. So unless it says all allies, you don't know who is going to be left out. And then the second thing that you have to know is every ally is going to attack using their default skills. That means they're A1. Allies joining the attack use their default skills. So if you're going to build an ally attack composition, you want to make sure that you're picking your other champions that go into the composition very carefully, based primarily around their A1s. So that determines where you get the value out of ally attack. I just want to mention one other legendary. I think this is one of the best ally attacks in the game as well. It is not an all ally attack, but it's a very good one. This is Longbeard's Horde's Fury. Attacks 1 enemy with 4 allies. That means you can use it in dungeons and get 100% of the team to attack. This also increases the damage inflicted by allies by 20%. So that's not quite as good as the 30% increased crit damage if everybody has 100% crit rate, but this is just flat damage increase. So this is also very good. And like I said, because it's for allies, you can use it in dungeons and have no fear that anybody's getting left behind. It's also pretty good in Hydra. One champion will be left out, but you're still attacking with 5 out of 6 champions. Now that we've gotten the legendaries out of the way, let's talk about the epics that I think are the best to utilize in an ally attack team composition. The best by far, I think, is Farrakhan the Fat, and this is perhaps the most famous ally attacker in the game, or the most well known, because he's the most accessible. People use him in blender compositions in the arena, even until endgame, even till gold. Well, I should say gold 5. I don't know about platinum, but in gold 5, you'll see him a lot. You can also use him. He's a great clan boss champion, and it's because his ally attack is also very good. So he places a 30% increased crit rate and a 30% increased crit damage buff, just like Cardiel, on all allies except this champion. Then all allies except this champion will attack one target, and this is on a 4-turn cooldown. So this is a very good ally attack. He's the only one who's not attacking. So it's sort of the same as Longbeards in that, you're going to get 5 in Hydra as opposed to 6, but you're only going to get 4 in dungeons or in clan boss. That being said, you do have the 30% increased crit damage buff, so you're going to get a lot of extra damage out of this. And the reason why Farrakhan the Fat is great in both arena and clan boss is in arena, you can build him with a blender comp, but in clan boss, you can build him with any kind of comp where you can utilize those A1s. So remember, in clan boss, if you have like an A1 poisoner, you get more poisons out on an ally attack because you're going to get basically 2 A1s per round. That's one of the reasons why he's so good. He also brings a decreased defense. He brings his own poisons and HP burns. So a very good all-around clan boss damage dealer. The second epic I want to call out is Morag Bronzelock, who's a great champion. She's also probably underutilized quite a bit. Her ally attack teams up with 2 random allies to attack a single enemy. The allies joining will always use their default skills, which is always true. This grants an extra turn if an enemy is killed. So while it's only 2 random allies, it does grant an extra turn, potentially reducing this cooldown to a 3-turn cooldown if you kill a target. You can use this in arena or wave content. And additionally, remember, it doesn't say that the target enemy needs to be killed. So if you are in, let's say, Spider, for instance, if one of the Spiderlings gets killed by an AoE, that would trigger the extra turn. You do not need to kill Spider to get the extra turn. So if any enemy is killed, you get that extra ability on the ally attack. Okay, so now we get down to the rare. There is one rare in the game, and that is Hyria. She is a high elf, and Hyria is, underrated here. You can see she's a 2, but I actually have found her to be very good, especially early game in faction crypts. She has 2 skills, which I think are actually pretty good. The ally attack here is the A3, attacks one enemy with 2 random allies. So that's kind of like Morag's skill. It is also on a 4-turn cooldown, but no extra turn mechanic. In addition, she also has this A2, which attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 50% chance when booked of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. So again, if you brought her into clan boss, you would not only have her A2 that could land you up to 3 poisons, but you have this ally attack with 2 random allies. The other thing about ally attack in clan boss that you want to remember is if you have champions who are 6 stars and you fully mastered them, they either have Giant Slayer or War Master, probably. And so every time you ally attack, you're getting more and more War Master procs, more and more Giant Slayer procs. If you can literally team up with your whole team, you can potentially get 5 additional procs from that one attack. So it's incredibly powerful. It adds a ton of extra damage. And also consider this: if you have any champions with blessings that do damage, or blessings that lower armor or defense, rather, armor. If you have champions that lower defense, if you have champions that put out poisons, if you have champions that put out HP burns on their A1, if you have champions that ignore defense, if you have champions that have a decreased attack on their A1, or any other debuff that you could use in the fight, all of those can go out during an ally attack. So the more champions, obviously, the more opportunities you have to do that. But even here, with just 2 random allies, you're going to get a lot of extra damage out there and potentially extra debuffs and extra other effects, instant effects. Okay, and now we come to the two uncommons. Crusader and Sergeant are both in the Sacred Order, but they're relatively easy to get. I think you can even farm Crusader from campaign, but you will get one very early on in the game. That doesn't mean you need to save him and build him right away. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that one of the things that we do early game sometimes to increase clan boss damage is to try to find uncommon poisoners. And I think another option here, and maybe a better option here, is to go with either Crusader or Sergeant. They are very similar. They're basic carbon copies of each other. There's slight differences in stats. But basically, they both have an A1 that attacks 2 times, and then they have an A2, which attacks one enemy with one random ally. The ally joining will use their default skill. Except if you book this out, you can get them down to a 2-turn cooldown. So that means, every 2 turns, you're going to be able to use this ally attack. Again, if you have a poison on an A1, like if you have Kale and he is 6 stars, you have a poison on your A1 and you probably have War Master. So every time that this guy attacks with his ally attack, you've got a chance to pull in Kale for a lot of extra damage. In addition, maybe you have a Deacon Armstrong in your clan boss team. That's going to give you an extra chance to get out a leech. Maybe you're fighting a boss that can be provoked, or you're fighting a champion that can be provoked, and you have a provoke on your A1 or a stun on your A1. You've got a chance to get that out there. Let's say you have allies that have AoEs on their A1, maybe AoEs with stun sets. If that champion goes out there, you get that chance to not only hit the entire wave, but potentially stun some of them. So even a one random ally attack can be useful. And also remember that when this champion attacks, when Sergeant attacks, he's attacking with his A1, which means he's also double hitting. Think about Fire Knight, right? Imagine an ally attack in Fire Knight where this champion gets at least a 2-hitter plus at least 1 hit from the ally, maybe 2 hits from the ally if you're only bringing in double hitters. What that means is this one single ally attack with only one random ally is worth the same as a 4-hitter for Fire Knight for breaking that shield. So this champion is great for Fire Knight, great for any boss in the game, good for wave content if you have an AoE A1 on the team, and really good for the clan boss. Here's another idea. Put Sergeant in a toxic set. Remember, you get 2 hits, plus when you do your ally attack, you get 2 more hits. So you get 2 opportunities to put those poisons out there, right? Plus, if you have another champion like Kale, you've got those extra champions for those Giant Slayer procs or War Master procs, plus poisons on the A1. And all of a sudden, you don't need those outlaw monks. You don't need those infiltrators to worry about. And you can build Sergeant a lot more tanky. He's a lot more survivable than those champions. Look at his defense. It's 804. HP is 12.5. His speed's a little slow at 92. But this is much more survivable than an outlaw monk. Just for a quick comparison, here is the outlaw monk. 12,225 HP, so about 300% or 300 less HP, which is not a big difference, but more, it's a 110 defense difference. So yeah, you can get a Sergeant out there. He's going to be a lot more survivable, or at least a little bit more survivable, and even 1 or 2 extra turns is going to be valuable. Plus, he can trigger, your starter champion who may have those Giant Slayer procs or War Master procs or any other champions who are fully 6-star masteried. So I think that the damage here is much greater. Also, by the way, if you're using any of the blessings that do damage, like Phantom Touch, or maybe you have a legendary who has Brimstone, ally attack also gives you the extra chance to land those as well. So I just think that the ally attack here from Sergeant is a better option early game, and even as you get into the mid game, than the outlaw monks or like other maybe single poisoners. The best of both worlds might be Hyria, right? Who has actually both. She has her own poisons, plus she has an ally attack with 2 random allies. Put her in a clan boss team. Consider putting her in a clan boss team early. It says she's 3 stars on clan boss. She's at least 3 stars in clan boss. And I think that you could potentially call her like maybe 3.5, maybe even 4 stars as far as early game clan boss goes. I wouldn't want to hold on to her for a long time, but I'm talking about having options and getting value out of a skill that most people don't talk about. Okay, so I hope I've convinced you that ally attacks can be very valuable, whether it is just one ally attacking or if it's the entire team that's attacking with you. Once you have an ally attacker on the team, you're going to think differently about the A1s that you bring into the squad with that champion, and you're going to find solutions to some of the obstacles in Raid Shadow Legends that you didn't consider beforehand. Think about champions that have an AoE slow on the A1 in wave content, or maybe somebody who has a provoke on their A1, and you're going to be able to use that to maybe double up on provokes on a wave or on a boss, maybe a boss who's your weak affinity against, and you want an extra chance to get that provoke out there. Obviously, that would be in Hydra Clan boss or the Magma Dragon. But yeah, so there are a lot of things out there. Just the fusion that we just had, Emek Trunkheart, he's got an A1 that grows the shield on 2 champions. So you could get more shield out there and increase your survivability. With Kale, for instance, his A1 heals, so I can get more heals out there with ally attack as well. There are all sorts of interesting A1s in the game that ally attacks can emphasize and give you basically 2 or 3 opportunities to use those A1s instead of just once. So all of a sudden, all of those champions who have interesting A1s become twice as valuable in an ally attack composition. Okay, let's stop talking about it and let's actually go and look at some ally attack team compositions. So here we are in the Demon Lord clan boss. You can see this is my Nightmare team with Cardiel. That is my ally attacker. So obviously Cardiel is giving everybody 30% extra crit damage for some of the time. And then in addition, we have Ninja here, who is my damage dealer. Now Ninja has a drop defense on his A1. So we're going to be more likely to have that drop defense up all of the time. In addition, I'm using Helicath. Helicath has a weaken on his A1. So we're more likely to have that weaken up 100% of the time. So 100% uptime from weaken and decreased defense is going to increase my overall damage. In addition, everybody here has a giant, not a giant slayer, everybody here has a War Master proc on them. So we've got more opportunities to land those War Masters. So by putting Cardiel in this team and getting that ally attack going, I can increase my damage output probably by about 30 or 40%. Over what this would look like with just another support champion here who was acting as a cleanser. Okay, because that's the role that Cardiel is also doing here. So if I just brought in a regular cleanser, I would probably lose a good 40 million, maybe 50 million. I would still probably one key just fine. But the amount of damage that I'm getting out of this team is much, much higher because of that ally attack. Now for endgame players, I want to talk about the value of ally attack outside of clan boss. I think there are 2 really important places to use this. By the way, the first place is actually just valuable for everybody, and that is in Fire Knight. I know I already mentioned this, but I just want to go ahead and show this. Let's say you are farming Fire Knight stage 20. I have an ally attack here. Now, I do have Sissy of Flame Tongue as my wave clearer, and she is Cardiel's duo, so I'm getting a little bit of extra value out of that. But I want you to look at this team composition and see how it's built here. And we're actually going to show this fight. We're going to go through the waves, and then we're going to go through the boss. Okay, so I don't have any AI on this team. It's running a little bit slow because I'm not on Plarium Play right now. This is on BlueStacks. But we're just going to see that, this ally attack allows me to get a lot more damage out there, get some extra crowd control. So Vizix has an A1 that drops turn meter, right? And it's also a double hitter, so that's good. Sissy of Flame Tongue's A1 is a triple hitter. Deacon Armstrong's A1 is a double hitter that can land a leech. And then obviously Newt's A1 is a triple hitter as well that can reduce turn meter. And then of course you have Cardiel's A1, which gives heals. So every time we have an ally attack, we have every A1 on the squad doing an additional effect. None of them are just doing damage. They're all multi-hitters, which is great for Fire Knight. And then they all also do, some additional effect that you could use in Fire Knight. The least useful one here is probably Deacon Armstrong. But his A1 also has the mastery that drops turn meter as well, 20%. I always forget the name of that mastery on the first hit. But one of the things you also want to know that I didn't mention before is that when you ally attack, everybody attacks in order of where they are on the team sheet, right? So the champion in the lead will attack first, and then the second spot will go second, the third spot will go third. So how you build them in order is important because that's going to determine how they attack and what those A1s do based on where they are in the turn order. And I'll give you an example. Like if you had an A1 that dropped defense, you would probably want that early in the turn order in most dungeons because you want that drop defense before all the other allies hit. In this particular case, we're more concerned with breaking the shield and then getting turn meter control on the boss. So when we get to the boss, I'm going to show you how that works with this team composition. Okay, so here we are at the boss. We have to hit the shield 10 times in order to break it. Now, one of the things that you may notice is that Cardiella is not my fastest champion. Deacon Armstrong is actually my fastest champion. You could obviously change that based on what you were trying to accomplish. So Cardiella is on my clan boss speed tune team, so he can't move any faster than this. I can't actually speed him up, even if I wanted to, which I do. But so what's going to happen here is Deacon Armstrong is just going to lay down a double hitter, and that's going to get this shield to 8. Now, with this particular composition, yeah, Cardiel can join an attack, so he actually has a second ally attack. He can join an attack. So now what's going to happen is Cardiel will attack first, then Deacon Armstrong will go second, then Sissia Flametongue will go third. Those 3 should break the shield, right? Because we have, in fact, not quite. That's going to be 6 attacks. So the first attack from Vizix will break the shield, and then Vizix's second attack will actually decrease turn meter, and then all of Newt's A1s will also decrease turn meter. So not only am I breaking the shield here, I'm going to be hitting extra hard with the extra damage buffs I have, and then I'm going to get turn meter control as well. So all of a sudden the boss has 0% turn meter, and we are on. Now, Vizix can go ahead and put her slow out. I'm going to just auto the rest away, and this should be over pretty quickly. One of the things that I don't have here that you could use is a cooldown reset or cooldown reduction champion. So if you had a Kymar or even a Renegade, you could get a little bit more value out of the ally attack. But of course, those champions may or may not have A1s that you want to utilize. I believe Kymar's A1 is an AoE, so you could get some value out of that in different ways. And there's Newt knocking him down. Okay, so not the fastest here. Sorry, my BlueStacks is a little bit slow today for some reason. Not a bad helmet, but don't need it. And so there you go. So that's one place where you can use an ally attack, and any ally attack is going to help you out. Think like Morak Bronzelock. Not only does she have a double hitter on her A1, but she brings in 2 allies, so you can potentially get 6 or 7 or 8 attacks out of her ally attack, depending on who you're bringing in that team composition. Now, the last place I want to talk about ally attack is for any turn-based content. So right now there is a Spider Turn Attack tournament out, and obviously you get more points for taking fewer turns, right? You can actually look here at the info, and it'll tell you that, if you are doing stage 25, say, the tournament points, as long as you clear it, you're going to get 24 points, but you can get up to 80 points depending on, if you can get fewer turns. So the nice thing about an ally attack is it only counts as 1 turn. So whether you're doing it here or you're doing, for one of these turn attack tournaments, or if you're trying to lower the number of attacks that you are using, or number of turns you're using in Doom Tower, if you're one of those people who likes to really challenge that content and try to minimize the number of turns you use, an ally attack can be really helpful there as well. Okay, so let's just jump into the Spider's Den, since that is where the tournament is today. I had to swap over to Plarium Play because BlueStacks was running so slowly. But as you can see down here at stage 25, I have a team that does it in 30 seconds with 10 turns. Now, that's not necessarily super fast. Remember, ally attacks take extra animations, so it's a little bit slower. But in terms of turns, I feel pretty good about 10 turns. And I know that I could go fewer turns than that. Okay, so here is my team. You can see I have a reset champion. I have 2 HP burners with activations, so we're just going to let this run and check it out, and you will see it's usually either 10 or 11 turns. Let's hope it's one of those. You have to delay Renegade's reset in the AI, so you do have to do that, because you want her to reset after everybody uses their big damage ability. We got our big hits. Now we're going to get the reset from Renegade. There it is. And 10 turns. Like I said, in terms of time, 32 seconds is not super fast, but 10 turns is pretty good. You can see I'm getting 55 points here. Obviously 80 is the max, so I need to get under 10 turns. Maybe I could get down to 5. I do believe 5 turns is available to me with a Cardiel. I could just even take Scylla the Drakes out of this team composition and run the other 4 champions. That might be enough. Or I could put a damage dealer there who's running very slow and doesn't get a turn, but would be part of the ally attack. I actually think that a Cardiel team is the only way maybe anybody could ever one-shot Spider. I think that's actually possible. I'm pretty sure I've already thought of a build that I'd like to put together that I think can you do this in 4 turns. But I bet if anybody will ever get it down to 1 turn, it'll have to be Cardiel that does it. I'm not sure any other champion could do it. Maybe Longbeard, but my guess would be Cardiel's going to be the one who one-shots it, or potentially 2-shots it. I do think a 2-turn composition is possible. So for all of you theory crafters out there, get working. I've given you a challenge. Let's see if somebody can actually one-shot the spider out there. If anybody out there knows of a video where somebody kills the spider in 1 turn, please let me know. I would love to see that and see what kind of team composition they do in order to make that happen. It would have to be ally attack. I can't imagine any other way it could happen. Okay, so that is it. Ally attack. Those 15 champions really are, they're not 15 great ally attack champions, but there are several useful ones. I think I gave you about 9 examples today, maybe 8 examples of ally attack champions that you could get a lot of value out in pretty much every place in the game. I love to use ally attack against Doom Tower bosses as well. I use ally attack against Iron Twins sometimes, against Sand Devil. There's so many places where you can use ally attack and get a lot of value out of it. Even if it's just one of those uncommons that you use early in the game to get a little bit more clan boss damage or help you out in faction crypts. Okay, that is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's see if we can get 1,000 subscribers. I'd love to do it today. So yeah, click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you so much for being here today. I will see you in another video very soon.